out of the ordinary insights. Brought to you by Investec Specialist Bank.
Welcome to this week's edition of Captains of Industry, and today we profile a rather interesting South African entrepreneur. His name is George Sombonos. He's the founder of a well-known chicken outlet, and that is Licken. And today we're broadcasting, George, from one of your flagship stores based here in Sandton on Rivonia Road. Take us back, because we know that Sandton and other northern suburbs weren't places that are often deemed as appropriate places for a Licken outlet, but how did this store come about?
We opened the store about 2 years ago. I liked the position, and we built the building, we ordered the equipment, and we fitted out this premises, and 3 days before we opened, we didn't even have a license. And we got the license, and we opened to huge crowds without even advertising to anybody.
So that must have been one major risk that you took on.
Well, you have to take risks. If you're not going to take risks in life, you won't go ahead, because most people don't want to take risks, so the ones that take risks get rewarded. But you can go the other way, and you can lose 5-6 million rand as well.
Very true. But take us back to the Licken story. I understand that you used to work with and for your father in a Greek tea room, if I'm not mistaken, and you went on a trip to the US and came back with a very interesting chicken spice recipe that worked in your favor.
I used to go to the old man was very strict, but over dinner once a year he'd throw an airline ticket and say, go to America. And I would go to America and walk down a street and maybe eat 20 pieces chicken a day by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the next day maybe 10, 12 hamburgers. And then I would go back to the motel, and in the evening go and eat for myself. And the next day the same thing. Nothing else. And I couldn't afford a car, so I used to walk down a strip from one food shop to the other food shop. No girls, nothing. It was just food. One day I sat in a burger shop for about 2 hours nursing a coffee. They even called the police. They thought I was casing out the joint. So I was fanatical. And I did it about 3 years until I went to Waco, Texas, and ate chicken, and it was fantastic. And I went back again the next day, same. And then I told the owner, showed him my passport, said, can't you sell me this recipe? And he said, no, it's his grandmother's recipe. I said, let's go for dinner. And I spent the whole evening talking and giving him wine. And at the end of the evening, he said, come and see me in the morning. I went back, he said, $5,000. I never had 5,000, I had 1,000. Just over 1,000. So I gave him 1,000, and he gave me a recipe, but I wasn't sure whether it was the real thing. And I left, and I came back, and I was mixing the spices of the Dairy Den Roadhouse, my father's business, under the bed, and in the morning swapping them with a bland recipe. And then sales started going up, and one day a relation tasted it and told the old man, what have you done? And he said, must be that youngster did something. And he then asked me what I did. I had to be honest, and we went to Robertson's and we gave them the recipe. We signed an agreement, and since then we've been using the same recipe.
I know that ever since then you've also moved out and established Licken.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about the name and how it came about, because that wasn't your first choice originally.
No, the first choice was golden fried chicken, but it was too descriptive to register. So one of the waiters told me, you don't look happy today, what is wrong? And I said, I can't register golden fried chicken, and we've got 3 months to go before we open a new chicken shop. And he said, why didn't you call it Licken? I said, where'd you get the name? He said, from the book. He brought me the book. I looked at it. I gave him 300 rand as a thank you.
That was a lot of money back then.
It was a lot of money, yes. It was a lot of money, but I was grateful that he gave me that idea. We put in the application, and then I needed a head. So a signwriter drew this head on the window. And I said to him, Mr. Mitchum, can you draw it in scale? And he did that. I paid him 75 rand. With 375 rand, we had a name and a logo.
And now you're a billion rand company, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, it's not the money. It's not the money. It's the challenge. I mean, how much money can you spend? How many meals can you eat? You can't eat a lobster every night. It's impossible.
Just on the challenges that you face, no doubt stiff competition from one of your biggest competitors, KFC, who have taken you to court before. And not only that, but also the regulations and finding locations for you to open stores, in particular during the apartheid time in South Africa.
Apartheid was tough. We opened stores in Soweto, but obviously the franchisees were all black in those days in Soweto. Now anybody can open in Soweto. But what was most difficult in 1985 when the UDF was formed, you couldn't deliver chicken into Soweto because those trucks would be hijacked and the chicken would be taken. So we bought 2 old Toyota trucks and bashed them to look like Soweto trucks with a hammer.
Sure.
And we would go in after 6 in the evening and deliver chicken to the stores and then go out because we knew that the kids were going back home at 6, 7 o'clock. So when we went in with these bashed Toyotas, they thought it was an old man who was maybe delivering something for himself in Soweto, and we kept those shops going. It was tough. Even in Lenasia, I wanted to own the shop in Lenasia, but I couldn't put it in my name. So I put it in a friend of mine's name, an Indian guy from Escort, and he wanted to open in Dundee. So Dundee's shop was in my name. So we did a swap. I helped him, he helped me. And you can get past any law, no matter which government is in place. If there's a will and you want to do it, you do it.
You had a will and a lot of people to support you on the sidelines. You mentioned friends of yours, the guy from Dundee as well as someone else from Soweto. How influential was having the right partnerships in helping establish Chicken Licken into the brand that it is today?
The right people. Even today, if you don't have the right franchisees, you're in big trouble. You need the right people with the right attitude. We even make people write a test to see that they are franchisee compliant before they get on board, because you might be a brilliant person, but you don't like regulations. Then you're not good to be a franchisee. Then you must go and do your own thing, because in a franchise, you've got to follow the rules. And it shouldn't be like that, but it is. The more dictatorial the franchise is, the more successful it is. You've got to buy everything the way we tell you. In our company, the trade-off is discipline, but we take no kickbacks from nobody. No special discounts coming to the company, so you get the best deal you could get. You get things cheaper, but you've got to follow the rules. Keeping
with the discussion regarding franchises, has that been a challenge, finding franchisees who are disciplined and who are keen on living by the rules?
It is a challenge, yes. They've got to have the right mindset, and they've got to want to do it, and they've got to like the food and like the brand when they come in. It's not just another job, because the hours are long. Obviously, they don't work from the morning to closing time, but you should be there at least 8 hours a day, and it's every day. And you might not be cooking the chicken, but you do the paperwork. You might pick up papers when you walk into a store and there's a paper on the floor. So yes, they've got to be dedicated. But what I've seen is when franchisees come, they scrape their money together to open a store. And 3-4 years down the road, when we have our franchisee meetings and you look outside, you see BMWs, Mercedes, 4x4s, so they make money. So we improve their lives. Yes, there is discipline. If you don't follow the rules, I can't help you. But if you follow the rules, you will be successful.
And the entrepreneurial spirit, we know that that's lacking in the South African market, given the fact that we have such a high level of unemployment. What do you feel we need to do to cultivate that a lot more and to have disciplined franchisees like yours?
Young people have got to dream, and they've got to take chances, and they've got to be dedicated. Even if you want to become a hairdresser, for example, you read all the trade magazines on hair, and you look at the products, and you must be so fanatical that you must be prepared to die for what you want to do. If you're prepared to die for anything in life, you will be successful.
That's something that Martin Luther King once said, not so?
Yes.
Let's take a look at your African operations. I understand that you have several stores in countries like Botswana as well as Zambia. What are the regulatory challenges that you have to take on in order to open up stores there?
You won't believe it, but countries outside of South Africa have more regulations than South Africa. And by rights, there shouldn't be so many regulations because they're less sophisticated countries with respect. Nobody outside South Africa has the same high standards as South Africa. But you go to Botswana and you find the German doctors, they have higher standards that in South Africa that you can't maintain. For example, we wanted to take the wings from Brazil to Botswana and they wouldn't let them in because there was Portuguese writing on the boxes. They wanted English writing, which is almost impossible to change that. So yeah, there are challenges. Because South Africa, the chicken we got here, the other countries don't have.
So how do you overcome some challenges?
Well, in Botswana, we use local chicken, and it's a great challenge. We had to teach people how to cut the chicken, what size chicken has got to be, how to inject the chicken with marinade, and we get by, but it's difficult. And then you find 2-3 times a year they've got no chicken, so we get permits and we import chicken from South Africa.
Has this influenced your decision to enter other markets, maybe further north?
Yes, you can't. We've decided we won't go anywhere unless Rainbow can open a chicken farm in that country, because then we know if the chicken's right, we can trade.
And Rainbow being one of our local chicken producers here in South Africa.
Rainbow has just bought a big chicken operation in Zambia called Zamchick. So now we're quite happy.
This week we speak to George Sombonos, who is the founder of Chicken Licken. And George, just before the break, we were touching on a local chicken producer, Rainbow Chicken, and you mentioned that you won't enter countries that don't have Rainbow as a chicken producer because it just makes the logistics as well as running the business easier. We know that recently in the news as well, we've had issues regarding import tariffs being imposed on chicken dumping, in particular coming from countries like Brazil. Does that impact on your operations at all?
95% of the chicken is local, all from Rainbow, all halal. The only chicken we get outside of South Africa are the XL hot wings, which are special big hot wings. And we do it because there's a shortage of wings and not because we want to buy. But we pay more for those wings than we buy the wings in South Africa. So we're not buying them because they're cheap, we're buying them because we need them.
And that's also a nice deal because it's two South African companies supporting each other.
Yes.
But just on the grain cost, because that we know that that's a part of the input pressures on the chicken producers locally, that's also something that you must monitor quite closely.
The grain, the soya, those are the biggest cost factors that influence the price of chicken.
I'd like us to touch on Chicken Licken moving out and growing as a business, and in particular this particular branch that we're situated at today on Rivonia Road here in Sandton. That hasn't always been the case. Previously you've tried to enter upmarket areas in northern suburbs like areas in Johannesburg, and you've been told that Chicken Licken is too black.
That's right, that's right. And we battled, and we in most of the shopping centers now in the Johannesburg area, Durban area, Cape Town. We're just looking at the store in Adderley Street. But it's been a battle. I mean, even up to now, we can't get into Sandton City. They just won't let us in. And when one of my friends asked them why, they said, we will bring the criminal element into that center. If there is a criminal element, it's already there. But we won't give up. If we can't get into Sandton City, we'll open a drive-through in Sandton. We recently made an offer for a piece of land in Sandton, and we're happy to pay 45 million to buy a piece of land to put a drive-through. That's how serious we are.
So how do you change that kind of mindset within corporate South Africa?
You'll change that mindset as more black people get into those positions, because all those positions are still run by whites, and they have that attitude. It will change. We just got to hang in there, and it will change one day for us.
Is this given the legacy that Chicken Licken has, having started back in the times of apartheid in South Africa in several townships in the country?
That's right. People think of it as a Kasi brand.
Well, Kasi is cool.
Yeah, but the food was not designed for the Kasi. This is a high-spec chicken. The equipment is international standard. For example, our chicken breading that we dip the chicken in, our coleslaw dressing has 3 different types of oil in it. So these are sophisticated recipes I've developed over the years. And if there's anything at Chicken Licken that I don't like, we'll never sell it. We're not going to sell it just for the sake of selling it. Recently, one of our suppliers said, put less oil in your mayo and you'll save money. And I told her, don't mess with the original recipes. Rather charge me, but I'm not putting less oil in my mayo.
Let's touch on that, because when it comes to fast food outlets, we have a lot of nutritionists or people who focus on nutrition, and they have concerns regarding the oil usage when it comes to fatty foods. And what's your response to that, or cultivating healthy eating with regard to takeaway foods?
Well, if you eat fast food 7 days a week, it's not going to be healthy. It's like drinking half a bottle of whiskey every day. It's also no good for you. But we do strive to make it, if you have it 2 or 3 times a week, as healthy as possible. For example, and we advertise it on our menu boards, on television, on billboards. Our oil has got 0 trans fats, our frying oil. And that already makes it healthy. The best of my knowledge, no other fast food chain in South Africa can boast that their oil has got no trans fats. Our oil's got no trans fats, so at least it makes it a little bit healthier. But eating 6 wings or 8 wings or 10 wings and coleslaw or salsa or even chips, it's not going to affect you. I eat Chicken Licken 2-3 times a week, and I don't have any stomach.
Not at all. Not at all. But I'd like to go back to the advertising. You mentioned that you promote good eating habits as well as the content that you use in your food. And your advertising, there was a point in your career when you didn't believe that advertising would work well to get the Chicken Licken name out there, until you brought Joe Mafela on board.
That's right.
Tell us about that.
Well, we did a link tank where you have people around a table, and we asked people who should advertise the brand, and one housekeeper came and said, Joe Mafela finishing class, good is nice. And I didn't know what good is nice was, and they used to spell it those days, it's goody, S-G-U-D-I, is nicey, S-N-A-Y-S-I. And we said, fine, we called Joe Mafela, and then we did 3 ads with him. And that was 1989. In 1989, our turnover went up 47% in 1 year. When I went to Rainbow that year, before that, they used to make jokes and tell me that I was Mickey Mouse, I was thin on top. That year, the joke stopped. Nobody has gone up in 1 year 47%. And that was with Joe Mafela. Great man, and he helped us. Until about 98. And then the young kids, Joe Mafela meant nothing to them. And we had to change. I paid him for another 2 years, even though he didn't do work for us. We had a deal, and you stick by deals. And by the 2000, the deal was over. And
how much did you pay?
I was getting a lot of money. In 1998, Joe Mafela was getting 78,000 Rand every 3 months in advance.
Huge number.
Huge number, but it was worth it. And he did great things for us, but nothing lasts forever. After 9 years, it was time to change.
And how do you do that? Keeping up with the times must be a bit of a challenge for a brand like Chicken Licken, which was established so long ago.
I surround myself with young advertising people, with the earrings and the purple hair and the nose rings. And they're creative, and I listen to them. Just like I listen to the designers. We've had the same designers for 20 years. And I listen to them, and we do what they say. And through them, we own some good properties. We own the word soul. We own the word soul food. We own Hot Wings, which are great words. Soul Sister, Rock My Soul. So we've got 28 trademarks in the soul category. Nobody can own soul except Chicken Licken.
That's worked very well for you, George. What legacy do you hope you leave behind one day when Chicken Licken falls into someone else's hands and you pass on the baton?
That you've got to lead from the front. I never expect anybody to do anything that I won't do or can't do. I pick up papers. I expect everybody to pick up papers. The managers, my daughter, executives, the security guard, even at the head office, got into the habit of picking up papers when he sees papers now around him on the ground. So if you set an example, I think that is what you leave behind.
And your key career highlights?
I think Joe Mafela, definitely, helped me when I needed help. The soul doctor that we had about 12 years ago, that was another big change. And then, of course, the ads we brought in, where there's a monkey on my back.
Yes, who can forget that?
Nobody. And the best ad I think we've ever made was the ad with the Sipho Hot Sticks Mabusa music that went back 20 years and showed Chicken Licken 20 years and moved it forward.
I know your father has had a strong influence on your entrepreneurial spirit, and you also have a daughter who I take it you've been molding into taking over your position. How important is that, strong family ties?
It's important because you learn from that. Even from my grandfather, he used to tell me things that are important to me now. Do this, do that. No shouting from my grandfather. My father would shout at me. And my daughter, I don't shout at her, but I guide her and tell her this is right, this is wrong. She comes with a problem. How do I solve this problem? I let her handle some litigation which makes her harder, and she understands how she'll deal with lawyers and opposition. That's important. But all the time I keep on telling her, no matter how difficult it is, we will prevail.
And the work-life balance, family, work?
I stop working at 6 o'clock. My cell phone doesn't work in my house because it's very bad reception. So after 6 o'clock, only if it's an emergency, somebody would phone my daughter and she would phone the landline. Yeah, you got to stop somewhere.
George, we know that we've got a culture of entrepreneurs who want to develop in an economy like South Africa, but there are lots of challenges to face. What would be your advice or words of wisdom that you could share with an up-and-coming entrepreneur in South Africa?
Well, they've got to be determined. They've got to go to people and ask them for help. Give me advice. Help me. 99% of people, if you go to them, I do it all the time and said, please, can you help me? They will help you. I do it all the time. I go to the United States and I go up to people and say, can you help me? This is the problem I have in marketing. And they help me. So you just got to ask and people will help you. But you've got to be determined. You can't give up. As if your life depended on it. Because if you just take a casual approach, whether it's business or athletics or sport, you won't succeed. When I hear a boxer saying, 2 more fights and I will retire, I know he's going to lose the next fight. Because he's given up, he wants to retire. You need a fighter that will say, I'll only retire when I'm knocked down. Otherwise, I'll keep on fighting.
So when are you going to retire?
I won't retire. They must probably carry me out of my office.
George, just on the future outlook of Chicken Licken, we've had is good, as good as nice. We've had the Soul Man venture. What can we expect from Chicken Licken in the next 5 years?
Many more exciting things. You'll see stores in the airports. You'll see drive-thrus in places like Hendrik Potgieter, Sandton City. I think the future is shopping centers and drive-throughs, which are convenient to everybody. And we're happy to fight. And also, we have less stores than our opposition. So we can open more stores. The future is open for us. And I see every time we open, for example, in Eastgate or even here, this is a R1 million store. Where did that money come from? From somebody. So I sometimes feel sorry for our opposition. They're almost sitting like sitting ducks waiting for us to come and take their customers.
And you're doing that, aren't you? George, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. This has been Captains of Industry with George Sombonos, who is the founder of Chicken Licken. From myself and the team, we wish you a wonderful evening further. It's bye-bye for now.